In this episode, we're exploring a significant SpaceX announcement in detail. Elon Musk has unveiled the next monumental advancement for the SpaceX Starship program. This development manifests in multiple ways. Naturally, it involves larger and more capable rockets, advanced engines, and innovative design elements that will enable Starship to accomplish a timeline of seemingly unattainable objectives within just a few years, ultimately resulting in multiple Mars landings by the close of this decade. That is, assuming Elon's projections prove accurate. Let's examine the specifics. The path to Mars originates on Earth. SpaceX has repeatedly emphasized that the Starship rocket alone is meaningless without the manufacturing capabilities, supporting it to generate the vehicle in substantial quantities. This is where Starbase enters the picture, a recently established city that SpaceX has designated as their territory. It houses the recently completed Star Factory, a production facility spanning 1 million square feet where Starship and booster elements are constructed. However, Starbase will shortly accommodate another enormous structure, the Gigabay, a general assembly facility where the organization can manufacture up to 1,000 Starship upper stage vehicles annually. Musk indicates the Gigabay will be, by certain metrics, the world's largest building. The exact nature of those metrics remains uncertain, but it will undoubtedly be massive. This positions the current Megabay structures to transition into Starship booster assembly locations because eventually the company won't require nearly as many boosters as ships, since the booster will simply return directly to the launch location and launch again almost instantly. It cannot accomplish that yet, but SpaceX has several new enhancements for the Super Heavy booster that should significantly improve the rocket's reusability. One of these modifications actually commanded center stage during the presentation beside Elon Musk. This represents the new hot stage assembly for Super Heavy. The Starship was not initially engineered for hot stage separation. It's a modification that was introduced following the remarkably eventful inaugural launch of the Starship in 2023. To accommodate this explosive new separation method, SpaceX needed to incorporate a new section at the booster's top, the hot stage ring. It features a heat shield to safeguard the fuel tank from the energy generated by having a rocket engine ignited against it. Additionally, it contains all these ventilation openings to permit the flame and exhaust to disperse. Subsequently, after the hot stage ring fulfills its function, the booster releases it into the atmosphere, and the ring simply descends into the ocean somewhere. That represented a provisional solution. If you examine this vintage Soviet N-1 rocket from the middle 1960s, you'll observe the identical triangular structure and curved dome configuration between the rocket stages. The N-1 was notorious for failing every trial in a dramatically explosive manner, but that doesn't indicate they made every decision incorrectly. Regardless, the redesigned hot stage is going to facilitate even more substantial propellant tanks, which will be feeding a completely new engine. The Raptor 3. The most significant transformation here is the elegance of the configuration. We've never witnessed a rocket engine with this appearance before. It possesses virtually zero visible piping, tubing, or electrical wiring. It appears too pristine to be operational. Musk describes it as alien engine technology. Yet SpaceX did present a video that they asserted to be a test firing of the Raptor 3. The advantage of this new configuration is that SpaceX can eliminate all the heat shield coverings surrounding the engine. Since there are no hoses and wires to get incinerated, you can simply allow the engines to remain exposed in the open air. That reduces weight on the rocket, which subsequently increases payload capability. However, it also means there is no enclosed area where the excess propellant and oxygen can become trapped and mix and detonate. That hasn't been a specific problem for the booster, but it's been a significant challenge with the ship stage recently. Therefore, Raptor 3 could resolve the most critical issue that is constraining Starship development. And that's going to allow the ship to endure all the way to the stage where it can re-enter Earth's atmosphere, which is where SpaceX still has a substantial task ahead. The heat shield. Musk emphasized that determining the proper heat shield for Starship is among the most demanding and most crucial aspects of making the vehicle rapidly reusable. It's also vital for landing on Mars. This is something that doesn't receive discussion frequently because it's somewhat advanced regarding the science, but this is truly essential for comprehending a realistic Mars landing. The atmosphere of the red planet is extraordinarily thin compared to Earth. Consequently, you might assume that it would be simpler for a rocket to withstand the heat from a high-velocity atmospheric entry and aerobraking procedure. But the atmosphere that does exist on Mars is 95% CO2, meaning it's predominantly oxygen. So when Starship collides with that atmosphere and ignites the CO2 into blazing hot plasma, The oxygen atoms will separate and they will fuel that fire, which amplifies the heat surrounding the ship, and this will degrade and burn away the heat shield tiles. Musk states that perfecting this heat shield will still require several years for SpaceX to accomplish. He characterizes it as an extraordinarily challenging task. But Musk is also exceptionally optimistic as always. He believes that an enhanced Starship and booster with Raptor 3 and the new hot stage will be prepared for launch by the conclusion of this year, and he projects that by the end of next year, that will provide SpaceX a 50-50 probability of flying the initial Starships to Mars in 2026. Again, according to Elon Time, you don't need to believe it. I'm simply here to convey what the man stated. And for the first time, SpaceX has delivered a roadmap for establishing the first human colony on Mars. Except it won't contain people in it anytime soon, but it will feature Tesla robots. Here's the strategy. 2026, 5 Starships launch for Mars, each one transporting just 10 metric tons of cargo. That seems minimal, and it is. But in this instance, it makes considerable sense. Lighter ships demand substantially less orbital refueling to actually reach Mars. A fully loaded ship necessitates something like 10 propellant deliveries to orbit before it can continue to Mars. So a ship with less than 1/10 of its full capacity might only require 1 or 2 propellant deliveries before it's prepared to depart. It's also highly probable that some, if not most, if not all of these initial 5 ships will crash during their landing attempt. So there's no justification for loading it up with valuable materials when you're merely attempting to demonstrate the technology to reach Mars and land on the surface. And that's what success would resemble if just one of these ships reaches the surface without exploding. It could occur. And if it does, then in 2028 SpaceX will dispatch 20 ships, each now transporting 75 tons of payload. These will hopefully prove that Mars landing is reproducible, and if so, then they're going to deliver equipment for future people to utilize. And naturally, there will also be Tesla Optimus robots on board who are going to manage all of the setup operations and prepare for the next batch of Starship landers. That arrives in 2030. 100 Starships reach Mars, each transporting 150 tons of payload. That includes hardware for resource extraction and propellant production on Mars. Tesla bots will commence building roads and landing platforms. They'll initiate habitat construction and expand power generation and storage infrastructure. Then 2033 is the major one. 500 Starship landers on Mars, each with 300 tons of payload. This delivers increased autonomy from Earth, the capability to extract and process resources directly from Mars, mobility across the entire planet, and communication supplied by Starlink satellites in Mars orbit. At this juncture, SpaceX will be enhancing the payload capacity of the Starship by extending the body of the rocket and upgrading it to a total of 9 Raptor engines, with 6 of the extra-wide vacuum-optimized nozzles. That establishes the foundation for a self-sustaining city on Mars, which has always been the ultimate objective of SpaceX. And the site that they've chosen is known as the Arcadia region of Mars. It's a level plain with convenient access to water ice, the largest ice cap on the planet beyond the polar regions. To genuinely create a self-sustaining city on a new planet is going to necessitate a nearly incomprehensible volume of Starships. Musk discusses somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 ships launching for Mars, all in one massive fleet, delivering 1 million tons of cargo to the Red Planet. Musk also concedes that it might require as much as 10 million tons to actually construct all of these remarkable structures on Mars that were being displayed, which he also recognizes will necessitate hundreds of Starship launch pads to be constructed on Earth, something he characterizes as a problem that will be addressed later on. He also references terraforming Mars into an Earth-like environment somehow, which will also presumably be resolved much later. I think he's abandoned the nuke Mars concept though, hopefully. So regardless, whether you accept these words as some form of a new gospel, or you dismiss this all as a massive pipe dream, this is the plan as presented by the most successful space exploration technologies company in the world. Consequently, it's the best we've got to work with right now, and it might be insane. But if you can suspend your disbelief even for just a few minutes, this is genuinely enjoyable material to contemplate.